Dre killed Marissa. Now listen, this is my theory, and I think by the end of this video, you will agree with me. I'm going to do my best to convince you because I have receipts. Now, if you want to challenge me, I hope that you have seen this series at least twice because there are some characteristics and some nuances that play a role in my theory, but I am going to break it down and curate the important scenes that play into my theory. Fair warning, this video contains heavy spoilers. Here's my breakdown and analysis of Swarm Season 1, Episode 1. Unless you've been under a rock for the past week, you've either heard about or seen Amazon Prime's limited series Swarm starring Dominique Fishback. This series was created by Donald Glover and Janine Neighbors from Atlanta, and it's an accurate portrayal of the Barbs, the monsters, the lambs, the Swifties. I'm just kidding. This is fan fiction centered around a stan who is obsessed with a mega pop star eerily similar to Beyonce and Beyonce's fandom, the Beehive. The mega pop star in this series is Nyjah, and there are various similarities, a lot of similarities to Beyonce, to her Formation era and to her Lemonade era in this series. Before we get into why and how, we have to cover who our anti-hero is. Andrea Green, better known as Dre, is played brilliantly by Dominique Fishback. Her best friend and her roommate, Marissa, played by Chloe Bailey. They live together in an apartment in Houston. It's 2016, specifically April in this episode, April of 2016. Now, what's important to note, which is expounded on in episode 5, when we get to know Marissa's parents, we'll find that, and in episode 7, it's also broken down. We find out that Drea was a foster child and that Marissa's parents sent her back to the foster care system because she was a troubled child. There were characteristics in her as a child because they considered her a problem child and they didn't want her to be impressionable. Marissa's parents didn't want Dre to be impressionable on their daughter. Now, even as kids, even as tweens and teens, Marissa and Dre shared a love of Nyjah. And even in this episode, we see a lot of their past tickets, the concert tickets that they have purchased to see Nyjah over the years. Dre loves Marissa, and she expresses that in this episode, but she also loves Nyjah and is willing to not only do anything for them, but also is willing to jeopardize their safety. That means Marissa's safety and Nyjah's safety, even though she is totally obsessed with them both. Those characteristics are built in brilliantly in this episode. I think Donald Glover did a great job directing the episode. He leaves a lot of questions unanswered intentionally, but when you watch it back and really study it, all of it's there. Here's how I know definitively that Dre killed Marissa. First of all, in episode 5, Leon plays Marissa's dad. His name is Harris. In episode 5, he says repeatedly that Dre kills Marissa. Her mom also says, "Have you come to finish the job?" In other words, Dre has taken everything from them. There is nothing left. They've already lost a son many years ago from a separate incident, and now their only daughter's gone. In episode 2, she is removed from the funeral. When Leon, who plays Marissa's dad, when he says "you killed my daughter," he says it in a cadence that throws you off to make you believe that he's saying, not literally you killed her, but in a way that you were responsible for her death. But he says it over and over again. And why I'm convinced that he means it and believes it is also because his wife says, "Have you come to finish the job?" Another reason I can confidently say that Dre killed Marissa is how Marissa's body is propped up on the bed. And I will prove that the text strand that they have together doesn't make sense consequentially or in the usual normal conversation. That's why it's so important. It's so important to set up the character traits in this premiere episode so that we can know what Dre is capable of and what she's not capable of. What she is capable of is murder, and that includes murdering her best friend and foster sister. Here's how I'm convinced she did it. So I'm going to curate many of the scenes that are important to this theory. When this premiere episode opens, there is a queue. If you've ever bought tickets to a concert, especially recently with the Ticketmaster fiasco, you're held in a queue, and it opens with this black screen and a countdown in a queue. So we know that someone is buying concert tickets, and we find out this someone is Dre. Dre has opened up a Discover card. She has no money, and she's opening up this debt really to purchase concert tickets for her best friend Marissa's birthday. She gets floor seats. These tickets are $3,600. She can't even make rent. The following scene is Dre propped up on her bed like a doll. Not just any doll. She's propped up like Annabelle. Now, Annabelle, for those that don't know, is a doll that is possessed. That's the tone of not only this premiere episode, but of the series. Dre's fatal flaw isn't that she's some obsessed fan who loves this mega pop star for her music or her music videos. Her fatal flaw is abandonment. She has been abandoned and tossed aside by everyone. And that will play a big part in why she kills her best friend and her foster sister. So, back to Annabelle Creations. Back to Annabelle. That's important because when we first begin to, or when Dre's character is being developed, we see that she's doll-like and somewhat innocent. And then she goes like full tilt. But in the beginning, she is a doll, or doll-like rather. And that's the Annabelle archetype. She even has Annabelle hair, specifically in this episode, but for the most part, her hair it'll be styled like a beehive. She'll still have the Annabelle bangs, but it'll be a beehive. But this hair is even styled like Annabelle without the braids at the end. This is a possessed and obsessed girl who goes on a rampage and becomes a serial killer, spiraling into this underbelly world of obsessive compulsion online, where she finds that people who don't like Nyjah, or people who disparage Nyjah's name or legacy online, she hunts them down to kill them. Damson Idris guest stars in this premiere episode as Khalid. He plays Marissa's boyfriend. And Khalid and Dre compete for Marissa's love and for her attention. So his character trait is set up too, because Dre needs him to be the fall guy, to be the reason why Marissa would consider unaliving herself. There is a scene where Marissa has a scar. It's very prominent on her wrist. Now, they don't go into detail what it is, but we can conclude that she had tried to unalive herself before. And Dre uses that to her advantage. So she and Khalid have somewhat of a tit for tat. He is very clingy in a way and really starts to or tries to peel back layers with Dre. In these first few scenes, again, Dre is rather doll like and seemingly innocent and protective of herself and of Marissa. So when she buys these $3,600 tickets, she goes on Twitter and gets gassed up by the hive. They're so jealous. She has tickets. She's so excited. This is a secret for her bestie's birthday. She shares this information with Khalid and tells her, don't tell Dre. It's a surprise. He agrees, but he has a counter gift that will whisk Marissa away for her birthday weekend to Atlanta. So Dre's like, no, Nyjah tickets. Now keep in mind, in this series, Dre hunts down people who don't like Nyjah for no reason. She takes offense if you don't like Nyjah. Khalid does not like Nyjah. He thinks that it is juvenile for her to have Nyjah posters up and old, fan art and old concert tickets in a room. But there are some things that Khalid does to persuade us into or convince us that he is capable of upsetting Marissa so much that she would want to unalive herself. But when you watch closely, that's not the case. I know this is going long, so let me try to land this plane. So Marissa is an aspiring makeup artist, and she asks Dre to close for her. Now, Marissa works in this kiosk part-time. Her passion is makeup artistry. She wants to be a makeup artist. And she gets this gig out of the blue that she would love to do. It's for an indie music artist. And she has to be there on this day where she's supposed to work at her day job. So she asks Dre to close for her. It's a kiosk in the mall that sells logo t-shirts. Of course, Dre agrees to do it. And so this scene is very important because Khalid is in this scene. He's in this scene and he knows the plan that Dre is going to close for Marissa and that Dre is going to be at this kiosk in the mall alone. So before that scene, Marissa and Dre share a moment. This moment is very important too to the character traits of these characters because in this moment, that's when we learn that Marissa had self-harmed herself, but we also learn that she has outgrown Nyjah. So Dre has been using this old Twitter account that they used when they were teens. It's a swarm account with that, is full of obsessed fans. And Marissa says, you're still using that, as if she's like looking down on her. Like, why are you doing that? That's for teens and they're crazy. These fans are obsessed. So she figures that they are too toxic and Dre should have nothing to do with them. That is important too, because although doll like Annabelle like Dre has not outgrown Nyjah, Marissa has. She's like, we're adults now. We're women now. Okay, so the next scene, Dre shows up late to close the store for Marissa so that she can relieve Marissa and Marissa can go do her gig at this concert. And who pops up? Khalid. Now remember, in an earlier scene, he knew that Dre would be closing this store. So he whisks her away as if he is purchasing a present for Marissa's birthday. He tells Dre, he acts like he didn't know that Marissa wasn't going to be here. And so he takes Dre away from this kiosk. Dre leaves it very vulnerable while they're away. And he's very clingy, and he, says these really nasty things to her. I won't even go into it, but you can just imagine. While he's away, and even when she tries to peel away, he keeps her longer because he knows what's happening at the kiosk. At the kiosk, his friends are like robbing it and vandalizing the kiosk rather. And then when Dre gets back, she's shocked and knows that she's got to call Marissa and peel her away from something she loves. Okay. This not only upsets Marissa because she was doing something she loves, this was a break for her, but she's also vulnerable to lose her job at the kiosk. Her boss is pissed because Dre was filling in without her boss's knowledge. So she picks up Dre and they go to their apartment, and she says, I am going to Khalid's house tonight, and after my birthday, I'm moving out. This is a pivotal scene. This is where Dre kills Marissa. So in retrospect, remember, Khalid had this kiosk robbed, not for petty cash, because it's vandalized. This was intentional. This was done to peel away. Remember, Khalid and Dre have been competing for Marissa's attention. This was his idea to finally get them apart, to drive a wedge between them two. And Marissa is pissed. And Dre says, well, I got you tickets to see Nyjah. Happy birthday. And she says, no, I don't want to see Nyjah. I'm going on a trip with Dre to Atlanta. So she doesn't even want to see Nyjah. And remember, Dre spent $3,600 to surprise her. And she's dead broke, flat broke already. The setup is brilliant because, remember, she has this self-inflicted wound on her wrist. She has this wound. So it seems like her character trait is someone who would do this. Now, Marissa says, I'm not going to this concert, and she abruptly leaves the house in her vehicle. That's also very important. She packs some clothes. She gets in her vehicle. She says the space will do us some good. She's not only leaving for the weekend, she's leaving the apartment for good. She's tired of carrying Dre on her back. She leaves. Dre runs after her. And then when she can't catch up with her, comes back in the house, and she's laying down and gets a tweet. Nyjah has posted a new video. Basically, Beyonce's Lemonade era, it looks like. And it empowers Dre to the point that this is not in the character. Remember, she was doll-like before. Before Annabelle became possessive. She was doll-like. In this scene, which seems very abrupt, she feels empowered, like Nyjah put a battery in her back. She dresses in this sequin spaghetti strap freakum dress, which looks like it probably came out of Marissa's closet. She goes to the club where she meets Stranger in the Club, played by Rory Culkin, and she just goes up to him, dance with me, whisks him off to the dance floor, and then wakes up in his bed the next morning. This is out of character, but it's intentional. It is a red herring, just like that self-inflicted wound is a red herring, because Nyjah doesn't drink. She doesn't smoke hard drugs, but she doesn't remember this night. She's using him as an alibi because she has killed her best friend, and her best friend is rotting in the apartment. So she says, do you have a bathroom? Yes. She goes into the bathroom to charge her phone. She had no charge. This text strand is also important because of what Marissa is saying in the text strand. So she says, I've had a big fight. Now remember, she only left a couple of hours ago, left the apartment. I had a big fight Khalid is cheating. And then in the middle of this, and says he left me stranded, which doesn't seem like, I mean, it doesn't make sense because remember, she left in her car. And people will say, oh, yeah, well, that's possible. He could have taken her car. It doesn't make sense. In the middle of this rant, though, in the middle of this heartbreak, she goes into a couple of tweets, a couple of texts about, oh my God, I love this video that Nyjah posted. It's very strange. So we're to believe that she was fighting with her boyfriend, got stranded, but still had her phone while she's stranded and looking for Dre to come save her. She goes on her phone to watch this video and forgets all about that for a brief moment. And then that doesn't, it's out of character for the development of the character built in this scene, in this episode, and it doesn't make logical sense. So she leaves Rory Culkin's house and she goes to this locker, like this Amazon locker, to pick up her Nyjah tickets. She goes home and finds that Marissa is in bed. We don't see how she herself. We don't see pills. We don't see slits. There is what looks like blood on the pillow, but it's shadowy. Remember, Donald Glover is very strategic in his directing style. So it looks red, even though Marissa's wearing green, which she had on the night before. It looks red. It looks like blood, but it also looks like a shadow. So what makes this scene suspect is that Marissa is laying on her bed with her legs folded. You don't have to be a forensic scientist to know that if someone's going to do this to themselves, they're not going to be laying on their side with their legs folded. This is an obsessed serial killer. A serial killer would do this. Prop them up because they love this person and lay them out in this way. The way she is laying out does not say that she inflicted this harm on herself. Also, which is near the end of the episode, her phone is charging. So we're supposed to believe that she had this huge fight with her boyfriend, that she was so upset when she finally got her car back from wherever she was stranded, came home, charged her phone, and then did that to herself, because someone who is in that state of mind isn't worried about if their phone has enough juice. In the midst of all this, days pass. Dre is, sulking, eating, sulking, laying in Marissa's bed. Marissa's gone. And then people come to repossess the furniture, to move her out. Maybe it was her parents. To move out Marissa's furniture, and there Dre is abandoned yet again. Her fatal flaw, abandonment. Dre goes to Marissa's funeral and she is thrown out. Her parents believe that she killed Marissa. Dre goes back to the apartment and she's texting Marissa, even though we know Marissa's gone. Some may debunk my theory, citing the fact that Marissa was rushed to the ER. When Dre finds her in her bed, unalive, she is rushed to the ER, and we don't hear this conversation, but we can assume that a nurse let Dre know that Marissa didn't make it. And doctors would have likely determined whether or not this was a self-inflicted injury that caused her death, or if it were a murder. Possibly, but that is left open-ended. It leads to more questions than answers. But the fact that not only does her do Marissa's parents believe that she was murdered. Khalid didn't necessarily lead her to do it because they said, oh, we had fights all the time. It was so arbitrary to him, and he had no idea she was self inflicting. Also, when Dre is reading this text strand, Marissa has a full beat. Her face is completely made up. There are no tear tracks. If she were in this big fight with Khalid that led to her wanting to do this, she would have tear tracks. When she is found unalive, there are no tear tracks. There are no, now one of her eyes is red, but there are no tear tracks. There should have been tear tracks if she were depressed or in this state of mind, you would think. Also, who goes to charge their phone when they're in the state of mind of unaliving themselves? The phone, all of the outside, all of these inconsequential things don't matter. So I have concluded that Dre killed Marissa. Dre used Marissa's phone to text herself as an alibi. She left the house to go to the club to spend time with this stranger, also as an alibi. And then she goes home to find her in this way so that she can say, I wasn't home all night and my phone wasn't charged. So I have concluded that Marissa, I agree with her parents, was killed by Dre.